being able to live stream my territory war attacks. Those of you that do know me know that what I do for a living makes my streaming schedule a little bit harder. But I did record all of my attacks, wrong button, on my phone and uploaded them to the computer this morning as soon as I got home. And so we're going to go back and we're going to do pretty much a full attack phase review, at least from my point of view. I got a couple wins, 2 very embarrassing losses that we'll go talk about a little bit more in detail, because the wins, I mean, you win. It's really just understanding the counter matchup. So with that, let's get into wherever I pulled it up. First video here. All right, so this is 3PO, a 3PO resistance team against Sith Traya team. So that's Finn, Poe, 3PO, Chewie, and Han. So how this works, for those of you that don't know, what really makes it tick is the leadership ability of Finn, which says resistance allies gain 30% offense, 6% defense. Other allies gain half that amount. Foresight, advantage, blah, 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 blah. And whenever an enemy takes damage from exposed, reduce the cooldowns of all resistance allies by 1 and grant them 35% turn meter. So, when now we go back to the video, every time that you're keeping your cooldowns permanent, right? So, off the start, what you're trying to avoid doing is you're trying to avoid getting their turn meter train rolling, right? My team, I think Finn and Han are both gear 12. C-3PO and Chewie are both 6-star. Chewie's gear 11, and I think C-3PO's gear 9 or 10, right? Definitely nothing special about this. And then I'm not sure what gear level Poe is at. Let's check. Prove a point here. So let's go to resistance. Why is this not working now? Here we go. Let's go find him. Poe, here we go. Poe, all right, gear 11 and 11 and a half, and nothing special on mods, right? So that's why I love this counter. So again, every time they take damage from expose, which is going to happen on Rebel basic attacks due to the 3PO special, all the resistance allies are gaining 30% turn meter or 35% turn meter, right? So starting on Scion, because I'm gonna have to attack him anyways, right? Because he gets pain off, or you get the skull debuff. I'm pretty sure it's pain. Have to attack him anyway. It's his version of the taunt. Get him out of the way, and now Traya. Probably should have gone for Nihilus here first, but when we first started, Traya's turn meter was a little bit higher, and so that's why I was like, all right. I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to have to go through, you're going to have to kill them all, right? You got to kill all 5 of them to win. So I made the decision here to take out Traya. Now what you have to watch is you really have to manage turn meter on the opposing team, because due to Traya's leadership ability attacking outside of your turn, your characters are going to start taking damage. So really be careful managing the turn meter on the other team, because now, I mean, look, 4 of my 5 characters are in the red, and 1 attack from Dooku or Bastila, I'm going to end up losing the battle, right? So thankfully, the turn meter control worked out well enough to where ended up getting through it pretty easily, all things considered. So especially if you're starting to get into the point in territory wars in your grand arenas where you're facing Treyas and you don't want to use Revan or your own Traya or something like that to do the counter, this resistance rebel combo team is absolutely going to be your best bet. All right, so next one. This one is pretty self-explanatory. The counter's been out there for a really long time, ever since Bastila came out. The entire point of her leadership ability is pretty much just to fuck with Palp leads, right? Like, you can't land those debuffs, you can't generate more turn meter for the Empire and the Sith guys. So that tenacity up with Bastila, that's really what's going to be your bread and butter here. So super generic Bastila team. Bastila is gear 11. Yoda and General Kenobi are gear 12 plus. Ezra is one piece shy of gear 12, and Jolie is gear 8, I think. Really, there's nothing super special about this one. I just wanted it's a solid counter, right? You're going against an Empire-led team. That's the reason that when I help plan a lot of the territory wars for Oprah Savage and now Awakened, really try to avoid using Palpatines on defense because there are so many counters to them that really people don't have to scratch too deep into their rosters to figure out. But yeah, I mean, haven't landed a debuff yet, and that's really all there is to preventing the Palp Terminator train is you don't let someone land a debuff, like they're not going to do anything. And so whittling them down, oh, there's a debuff finally. But get rid of Sith Trooper, really because you're just trying to burn through the taunt, right? Now, pretty sure I targeted Palpatine next. Yep, got Palpatine. Yoda's a monster, doing 32,000 damage, and I have him modded pretty poorly. And now at this point, it's just wrapping everything up, right? Also, the big thing with this one, so Zeta Savage, he pulls debuffs from other Sith characters at the end of his turn. So there's a couple other really good Palp counters, but the Basila team, it doesn't land debuffs at all. So there's no way that you're making Savage even tankier and pulling debuffs off other characters, right? So just another thing to look about when you start seeing the deeper rosters with a couple other Zeta characters to be able to use. Okay. This one right here. This is, I believe the video, yeah, so this is my CLS team against the Basila Jedi team. According to the Pigeon, like the Territory Wars counter guide, and this is something that like really is 100% my own fault, but CLS and Wedge, the Biggs teams, are listed as counters to Basila Jedi. Someone way better at the game than me created that list, and I'm sure it works for them. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but I was waiting for other territories to open up, and I was like, yeah, you know what? I have my CLS team. I'm going to go ahead and roll with this and figure out if I can make this work, right? Also, probably I should have used an auto tank here or an auto taunting tank. I should have thrown Baze and Chirrut in. I didn't. I got greedy and cocky, and I was like, I outgear this team. I'm going to take it easy, right? And that was a huge mistake. I managed to take out, I think, General Kenobi here, and then Yoda goes bonkers, one-shots my CLS, and I put it on auto and ended it, right? So I learned something big here as well from this one is, A, don't underestimate your opponents, even if you outgear them. And that was my first mistake. That was real stupid. And if I'm going against a Jedi team, yep, right there, 44,000. If you're going against a Jedi team, especially with a Grandmaster Yoda, unless I'm going to ridiculously outgear the team, need to throw in some form of tank in there. Just because Yoda being able to one-shot everyone's absurd. That's not even a great modded Yoda, and he basically did whatever he wanted to this team, right? So that's really, I mean, I figured no one's going to win all their territory wars every single time. So figured throwing in all of my mistakes in here as well helps anyone else not make the same mistakes. It'll be worth it. Okay, so I did end up I have 2 wins against Basila teams. They had an absurd amount of Basila teams set as their defensive wall here. Went JTR. The big thing, preventing have the buff and the healing immunity from JTR. So we go to her leadership ability here. If I can get this, there we go. The game really does not like scrolling on the computer. But JTR leadership. 30% critical chance and 30% critical damage. When they score a critical hit, they have a 70% chance to inflict expose for 2 turns. Gain 10% turn meter when an enemy is exposed. So now, when a resistance ally uses a special ability, this right here is what makes her great in Phase 1 of the Sith Raid. All exposed enemies lose 5% turn meter, and if a resistance ally has no debuffs, reduce their cooldown by 1. So again, this Basila team right here, aside from Old Bin, they're not going to inflict any debuffs, right? So every time we're damaging people by expose, we're reducing cooldowns, and we're reducing their turn meter. So focused on... I'm also pretty sure I screwed up the opening here. So what I just said, as far as my thought process behind taking the JTR team, I didn't do it. And I'm pretty sure it is very apparent here that I didn't do it. But wipe and buff turn meter from General Kenobi, damaging from the expose, and then Old Bin gets his stun or his ability block off. So what I should have done is, as soon as I wiped the taunt from General Kenobi, should have attacked Old Bin to remove all of that turn meter. Because now, I mean, it doesn't matter. It's still a really easy victory in the end. But if it had been a little bit better of a matchup, then that could have come back to bite me. Just because now all of a sudden I've got this ability block from Old Bin. And if the Jedi get their turn meter train rolling, especially with Yoda, just saw my last video, he obliterated my Rebel team. It's really hard to get back from it. So in the dual tank setup for the Jedi teams, make sure that you're really managing the turn meter train correctly and keeping, if you use a JTR team, buff immunity on Obi-Wan because he gains taunt when people get critically hit. So that way you can go after Old Bin first and keep that ability block from landing on your team. But really, nothing special here for the rest of the video. Illuminated Destiny goes off. JTR does a ton of damage. And that's really it. The trick is just managing the buff wipe and the healing immunity against all of those Basila teams. Then 1v5, you guys can guess how that one ends. All right, so here is the other counter. All right, I spent a minute scrolling through teams there for a second. But here's the other really solid counter to Bastila-led Jedi. Night Sisters. Because once you can break through their bonus tenacity and start landing Plague, especially if, big picture, while Hermit Yoda is by far the better healer of the Jedi between Barriss and him, because you're going to save Jolee for your Revan teams. Night Sisters work far better against Hermit Yoda Basila-led teams because they heal on damage or on critical hits with a Zeta Barriss in your team. So it's a little bit harder for the Plague to stick, especially early on. But against a Hermit Yoda team, they're only healing on his basic. So it's a little bit easier to get the Plague train rolling. But again, burn through the tank, use the heal to keep a bunch of the buffs off Yoda. And then remember, as soon as you lose a Night Sister and you kill a Jedi with a basic attack under the Talzin lead, they're going to come back to life. So keep Talzin, because at the end of the day, if you have a fast enough Acolyte, you can keep Acolyte hidden under Zombie with her stealth. They don't have enough AoE to burn through her. And then at this point, it's pretty much game over. Heal on Asajj, wipe the buffs, and rinse and repeat. Even with Old Mother or Mother dying there, you kill Jedi on your basic attacks, right back up. So, yeah, Yoda being stealth is also incredibly annoying, but that's what the Plague's for, right? There you go. Clear the buffs again. Mother's back up. Old Daka's back up. And Plague train rolling. At this point, game over. So, yada, yada, yada. Yep, 4 stacks. Game. Here we go. All right, so this is my one win against First Order, which I'm embarrassed to say I got very, very greedy on my second attempt. Nothing special here at all. Just Palp, like the Palp Vader combo, especially since they're ever since the rework a year, 2 years ago. Vader gets his speed up, drops his AoE, Culling Blade, gives turn meter train to Palp, get the stun off, keep that turn meter train rolling, and you're basically going to stun lock and buff lock people until you win. I prefer stunning First Order Stormtrooper over Kylo Ren Unmasked. Just personal preference. Him being able to clear buffs and everything is incredibly annoying. But once you have Kylo Ren Unmasked down, at this point it's too easy. I mean, kill the tank, watch out for First Order Executioner, especially if he can get his turn meter train rolling, because if he kills someone with a special, instantly gets to go again. If he doesn't, that's 80% turn meter, right? So you can get in a pretty annoying loop where you're stuck behind a Zeta Kylo Ren Unmasked, First Order Officer, and First Order Executioner, just because of how easy it is for them to keep the turn meter train rolling. But again, a little bit over geared versus this team, and just the stun locks. It keeps crew from healing. It keeps First Order Stormtrooper from taunting. Really an easy team to beat once you're able to break through the stuns there. All right, so now this one right here. This is probably my biggest mistake of this territory war. I got really, really cocky, and I was thinking in my head that, all right, I have my Imperial Troopers team left, breaking through this First Order wall because it's late at night for most people of the guild. We're not going to break through this wall anytime soon. And I wanted to be able to use my troopers. I was like, yeah, you know what? They're a really fun team. One of my personal favorites, aside from Ewoks, in the game. And I had the great idea of, I'm going to use Death Trooper. I'm going to put heal block on Kylo Ren and old Kylo. And I'm going to burn them down with the stagger and AoE from Veers and Stark. And it worked terribly. I thought I was going to come up with an interesting counter, at least as far as the heal block goes. And I don't know what I missed in like the thought process in my head before I went. I mean, obviously, the two teams counter, or the two Kylos counter so much. They have plenty of stuns. And, I mean, 20 seconds in, I'm already, like, it's already game over. Yeah, like, I really don't know what I was thinking with this team counter. Like, it sounded like a great idea in my head, and it was a terrible idea. And really at this point I should have forced quit, so I didn't preload turn meter for the next team. But overall, it was a relatively weak First Order team, and I was confident that, hey, someone else is going to be like, what idiot in this guild lost to a pretty under-geared First Order defensive team. So, with that said, that was my review from the attack phase of Territory Wars. We ended up smashing through them. I hope you guys learned something. We have another Territory War coming up starting tomorrow for the attack phase, and I will be probably doing the same thing, recording attacks from both of my accounts, and then getting everything all set up to do another attack phase review. And hopefully I don't have two really stupid losses. So thank you guys for stopping by. I appreciate it. One last thing, bit of self-promotion. At 25 subscribers, I'm going to do or followers on Twitch, I'm going to do a $50 iTunes or Google Play Store giveaway. Whenever that happens, I'll just do a random number generator on stream. Every one of my subs will just get numbers, a randomly assigned number. And winner, $50 Google Play or iTunes gift card. So, thanks again, and see you guys next Territory War.